Being trained in CQB just gives you a lot more capacity, while also giving you the ability to work with others. If they know the shapes, it becomes intuitive. And now if there was a threat, you're bringing two different coordinated weapon systems into that same situation. And that's another reason why I think everyone should take a CQB class. Your knowledge and skill set becomes an asset instead of just whatever you ran around with on the range being probably a liability. Hey Wizards, I recently had a chance to attend the Defense Elements Anatomy of Structures CQB course, and I have to say that it was just absolutely crazy from both a knowledge and a skills perspective. The instructor team over at Defense Elements was just great also, and getting some education really changed my perspective on exactly what CQB is and how it can be applied for the everyday man. So today we'll talk about why everyone should attend a CQB course. Now, let's go into some misconceptions. I don't know if you're like me, but I always thought of CQB as like storming a building or just like racing around rooms like as fast as you can, kind of like what we see on the movies. I always shied away from this type of CQB training because it seemed mind-bogglingly dumb to go race into a building with a bunch of open areas and open angles, particularly in like a survival scenario or like a SHTF. Instagram further perpetuates that CQB misconception with all these people just running around in buildings without ever looking around, or the opposite with whatever dumb this hot garbage is. Learning a little bit more, it's a lot more obvious that CQB has been Instagrammed and goobered up, so let's talk about what it really is. Let's start with the words. CQB stands for Close Combat Battle. Now, this is pretty well known, most people can Google things, but what do we mean by close? Like 2 feet? No, what we mean by close in this scenario is anything that's within the zero of your rifle. So if you have a 100-yard zero, that would mean anything, any target within 100 yards would be CQB. 50-yard zero, same thing. 36-yard, even for you crayon eaters, same kind of thing. Just to give you kind of an idea, it's not like steadfast lock to that, but just to give you an idea of kind of that range and how big a CQB space actually is, it's inside your zero. So CQB principles encompass a pretty large distance. 50 yards is likely most of your home, meaning any home defense would need you to use CQB, or even a grocery store with the long aisles would still allow for defensive CQB use. Now, removing even more misconceptions, CQB also isn't just about being indoors or around structures, kind of how I thought it was. All the CQB principles can still be used outdoors with trees or rocks or any structure. Heck, you can use this camera for a CQB angles and everything else. For instance, even an open parking lot with cars everywhere can be handled with the same exact CQB principles that you could use anywhere else. At first glance, though, something like a parking lot could seem a little bit menacing. Like how are you gonna, figure out all those angles all at once? And CQB principles helps you to break all that down in an easier way and also do it safely so you don't, endanger your buddy or somebody else with you. What CQB is, and not the Instagram stupid nonsense, is how to move around structures like your home or objects within that zero distance while also doing it safely with a firearm. I emphasize safely, as you're very likely to have your family member or some sort of teammate who's there with you or potentially helping you. And if you're moving around so fast that you could potentially hurt someone or just muzzling everything, that's not helping anyone. In reality, that's irresponsibly unsafe, and I wouldn't want you anywhere near me. Ready? Now that also crashes everybody down to earth because it means the speed you travel and transition is the speed you can accurately assess the situation.
All right, I'm going right.
Again, just so you can better identify the morons, seeing someone just running in and out of rooms as fast as they possibly can is a pretty high indicator that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Now, of course, some priority of life does call for that level of urgency, but not Instagram. They don't need that. Now, on top of assessing the situation, learning CQB allows you to see the basic shapes in the world, so it's easy to tackle a structure one piece at a time. In the Anatomy of Structures course, we had a shape for 99% of everything you'd ever run across, which allowed us to both dominate and assess the situation before moving forward. Making it all revolve around simple shapes means it's pretty easy to just teach somebody else if you had to. I mean, sure, having 4 or 5 guys is cool. I mean, that's super effective. But at your house, you probably have your spouse. And if I'm out at the store, I'm too old to have 4 or 5 dudes just hanging out with me. Being able to grab a person and say, hey, can you use a rifle? I can teach you these basic things and we can survive this situation is far more realistic. Let me show you what I mean by shapes, though. Going back to the parking lot scenario, here we can take 2 individuals and break down the angles of exposure into basic shapes instead of seeing the whole mess. We eat it 1 bite at a time. First, top of a T, both members can move up and protect each other. Another top of a T, move up and protect the angles again. Next, bottom of a T. Our 2-man team can then move to protect their back of their teammate while also addressing angles. And an L makes a quick work of the space. Now, I'm showing you all this while also skimming over it and telling you not to worry about the details, because this just isn't something you can learn by reading a book or by watching somebody like me on YouTube. It just doesn't work that way. Think of it like this. It would be like watching a video or reading a book on how to do a backflip. You'd never really know if you could do a backflip or not just by reading that book or watching somebody else. You'd have to give it a whirl. No, I'm not trying it. And this is why I say everyone should take a CQB class. Being around others in a classroom environment with instructors and correction helps to take things up a notch in a controlled environment where your mind is taxed far harder and you begin to not only learn CQB, but also learn true problem solving. Now, is CQB training super challenging and is likely to kick your ass super hard? Yes, absolutely. It is challenging because you have to think through multiple problems in a situation as it unfolds and see the world in a whole new way. So that's why it takes a little bit of time. It's a little bit of challenging. Understanding angles of exposure, angle of attack, it's just a new way your brain has to compute the world. Plus you add in, you gotta do it with a rifle in your hand with all the carry positions, and at the same time, moving carry positions, all these things going on, assessing the situation, and then still determining whether or not a threat is a threat or not. I think that's kind of like the icing on the cake as to why you attend a CQB class, so you can go through all that and experience it all in a controlled environment before, I hope it never happens, but before you ever have to experience that in real life. Hearing a bump in the night and moving through your house with your heart rate at max and trying to assess angles and learn on the fly means your brain is going to be completely maxed out when you turn a corner and it's some neighbor's child who got lost in your home who now has a rifle in their face. And that's how people get hurt. You're so in your rifle with everything else you're trying to think about and assess that your brain just doesn't have the computational power to assess who that is, if they're just a child or a family member. You're very likely to miss that. In that same situation with having attended a CQB course, it's easy to hear something, stay calm and collected in a low ready position, know and understand the shapes so your mind isn't taxed. So when you do approach an unknown, your mind has the room to work much faster to assess what that object actually is. So the training really helps to train your problem solver, and I really do think that's what makes CQB so difficult. I mean, shapes are easy. They're just shapes, you know shapes, and you learn them pretty quickly. But you have to learn how to solve problems on top of a stressful situation and also not hurt anyone and also not put your own computing power at max. Being trained in CQB just gives you a lot more capacity while also giving you the ability to work with others. If they know the shapes, it becomes intuitive. And now if there was a threat, you're bringing 2 different coordinated weapon systems into that same situation. And that's another reason why I think everyone should take a CQB class. Your knowledge and skill set becomes an asset instead of just whatever you ran around with on the range being probably a liability. Now, I like the Anatomy of Structures course from the Defensive Elements team. There are other classes available, and I'll say that getting the training is the most paramount thing. And then after you get the knowledge, you can decide for yourself which training is better for yourself. I've only taken one class, so I don't have the knowledge to say this one is better than the other, even though I'm sure there's some sort of pissing contest out there. But just know that some training is definitely better than nothing. In reality, the more folks who have CQB training, the easier it is to flag down somebody in a dangerous situation and kind of say, hey, do you know anything about what we're dealing with? Oh, you do have some CQB training? Then it's easier to help your families and each other to escape that situation safely and probably a lot easier, while also doing it in a way where you can move safely with the weapon system and also maintain the brain power to identify friendlies and threats. Now, if you're like me, you're probably like, oh, I could do that. And I'll tell you right now, no, you can't. Not unless you've practiced it and you've practiced it and you've honed that bit of your mind into just an absolute fine edge. You will not suddenly rise to the occasion. I'm gonna tell you that right now. It's super difficult and it's very challenging and it takes a lot of practice and it takes a lot of working of the mind. If you think it's just gonna be super easy though, hell, I'll come out to your class and record it for you and we could just share with everyone. I think it would make for a pretty good chuckle. Just remember, regardless of what people like to sell you, CQB is about moving at the speed you can process and not just diving in rooms or doing silly arm crap while you're on the way to punch your girlfriend. I really do think we'd all be safer and we can just protect each other better if we all took a CQB course. So I hope this video on why I think everyone should take a CQB class was useful in your training plan or what maybe would be useful for you to learn when, there's so much other stuff out there where it may be confusing. And I want to say thanks to all of our Patreon and YouTube supporters. You make it possible to go out to cool classes like this Defensive Elements, Anatomy of Structures, and then actually assess it, come back and say, hey, what's worthwhile in these classes? I also want to say thanks to everyone that likes, comments, and subscribes. Comment down below what you think about CQB and if it would be valuable to you. I want to hear about it. All right, everyone, Walsh out. Bye. Yeah, dude. So no joke, this class was super hard. First day, rolled in. I'm sure I'll talk more about this kind of like lessons learned, I'll share to it. But first day rolled in, man, I had to peel back the speed so hard. Like second day, really just going, like not worrying about how fast I'm gonna shoot something or how fast I can switch off the safety. None of that impressed anybody. That is a super garbage skill. Shooting the wrong target fast is I don't know why anyone should train that. You have to be able to assess the target. If you haven't assessed the target, all those other skills are useless. So yeah, super challenging, super humbling, just a great overall course. Big thanks to Defensive Elements guys, really cool. I hope more of you guys come out. I'm gonna do far more training, both with Defensive Elements and with some other guys. So we'll keep you all posted on dates. And if you wanna come out, just come join us. Big thanks to Tactical Jawa. He came out too. He was my partner for most of it, so it was cool to have a viewer that was with me. Just an overall fun time. We also been playing a lot of Ready or Not together with all the skills we learned, and we've become really, really good. So if you also want to join us for some gaming sessions, you can hit up on, I can't talk today. You can hit us up on Discord also. So yeah, hope to see you all more. Hope to see you guys at class. Thanks for joining me here. This has been super fun. Yeah. All right, guys. I gotta go. I got stuff to do. Get out of here.